Good day, everyone. This is Rhea Jane Amplayo, and this time around, we will discuss about phonological development. Let us first recall about phonology. Phonology is a study of how speech sounds form patterns. It tells us what sounds are in a language and how they do and combine to words. When we say phonological development, this refers to how children learn to organize sounds into meaning or language during their stages of growth. Sound is at the beginning of language learning. Children have to learn to distinguish different sounds and to segment the speech stream they are exposed to into units in order to acquire words and sentences. One reason that speech segmentation is challenging is that unlike between printed words, no spaces occur between spoken words. Thus, if an infant hears the sound sequence, "This is a cup," they have to learn to segment this stream into the distinct units. "This is a cup." Once cup is able to be extracted from the speech stream, the child has to assign a meaning to this word. Furthermore, the child has to be able to distinguish the sequence cup from cup in order to learn that these are two distinct words with different meanings. Finally, the child has to learn to produce these words. The acquisition of native language phonology begins in the womb and isn't completely adult-like until the teenage years. But prior to uttering speech sounds, infants make a variety of sounds: crying, cooing, and gurgling. All infants make the same variety of sounds, even children who are born deaf. Children's early vocalizations pass through a series of stages. With the end of the second month, infants begin to do a lot of cooing. Coos are acoustically more varied than cries, as infants exercise some control over their articulatory organs to produce a greater variety of sounds. Coos tend to be made in the back of the mouth and are similar to back vowels and velar consonants. A little later, by about 6 to 7 months, babbling begins. Infants first use reduplicated babbling, in which they repeat a consonant-vowel sequence, such as
Bubbles.
Similar tendencies have been found in various languages. By 11 to 12 months, infants use variegated babbling, in which syllable strings consist of varying consonants and vowels, such as It is also about this time that infants begin to impose sentence-like intonational contours on their utterances, and their vowels begin to sound similar to those in their native language. Babbling is thought to be a form of play in which various sounds are practiced and mastered before they are used in communicative ways. Another reason is that infants have been found to babble more often when an adult is not present than when one is present. For instance, babies often babble in the crib when awakening and before falling asleep. By the end of the first year, two aspects of the infant's development, the use of gestures to convey meaning and the mastery of speech sounds in non-communicative situations, begin to emerge. Now the child is capable of using speech sounds to communicate meaning. Children come to use true words because of several processes. There is greater motor control of the speech apparatus, which enables infants to make sounds in a more precise way. There is cognitive maturation, which, as we saw in the previous section, enables infants to express communicative intent. And there is the dawning awareness that specific objects are represented by specific symbols in the language. Things have names before children fully grasp this latter point. They sometimes invent their own symbols to refer to objects or events in their environment. These personalized words are called idiomorphs. Interestingly, children at this stage of development use their idiosyncratic words in highly consistent ways. For example, a 1-year-old child referred to milk as kaka. These sounds are used whenever the child talks about milk. Another example comes from Hakuta, who reported that a child said "woo" as a way of saying hello to guests who came to the house. It turns out the mother often greeted the child in the morning in this way, along the lines of, "Woo, you must have some load in your pants." As these examples suggest, children appear to draw from their language experience in forming these idiomorphs. Sometimes the idiomorphs are simplifications of adult speech or relate to the sounds of the objects to which they refer. Idiomorphs underline several important aspects of development. First, they indicate that children's language is creative. Children do not simply imitate the language they hear, but instead sometimes take this language and use it in novel ways. Second, idiomorphs indicate that children have learned that it is important to be consistent when referring to objects. The consistency of idiomorphs suggests that infants know that it is important to be consistent even if they have not yet grasped the objects have names. Or perhaps they know this but do not yet know the names. In either case, idiomorphs are a transitional stage between babbling and true words. One that indicates, once again, that children's awareness of communicative processes may precede their knowledge of language structure. After their first birthday, children begin to produce recognizable words. Some simple words may be pronounced correctly from the start. In other instances, children's versions of words differ from adult versions. By examining these differences, we can draw some inferences about children's phonological processes. Let us look at some of their regularity in children's pronunciation of adult words. The following table lists 4 processes that commonly occur. Reduction, which occurs when children delete or eliminate sounds. It is common for preschool children to have difficulty with consonant clusters and to reduce clusters when they occur at the beginning of a word. An example would be saying "tour" for store. They may also reduce later segments of words, such as saying "bow" for bottle. Coalescence occurs when phonemes from different syllables are combined into a single syllable. In the example in the table, the F in the third syllable is combined with the rest of the first syllable. Assimilation occurs when children change one sound to make it similar to another sound in the same word, such as saying "nance" for dance or "tweet" for sweet. In the latter case, the F is articulated closer to the front of the mouth than S, making it more similar to the bilabial W. Reduplication occurs when one syllable of a multisyllabic word is repeated, as in dada for daddy. These processes are common but not invariant in child language. Different children may use different processes to vary extents. Why do children make these errors? A simple explanation states that the child cannot discriminate between the sounds that are confused. For example, the child might actually hear "stop" as "top." Another possibility is that the child simply cannot produce the omitted sounds. Though somewhat plausible, this view cannot account for studies of imitation that show that many errors made in spontaneous speech are not made in imitation. It also cannot explain a situation such as the one described by Smith, who heard a child say puddle as puggle, yet say puddle in place of puzzle. Here, the child is capable of producing puddle but nevertheless fails to do so in the correct context. Something more than articulatory difficulties seems to be involved. A third possibility is that these simplification errors are part of a more general linguistic process. Children mastering a phonological system must also pay attention to the syntactic, semantic, and pragmatic features of their utterances. A complex phonological sequence might overload their information processing capacity. This position would predict deviations from adult speech in the direction of simpler consonant-vowel sequences, particularly in spontaneous speech. When the child is merely, however, these other levels of language require less attention. It is not possible at present to firmly conclude that any of these ideas are correct. Nonetheless, each of these ideas has testable implications, and we have some reasons to believe that explanations based purely on either perceptual or production limitations may be too simplistic. And that's all for today. Thank you for listening.